Can we use AI to give our customers a better experience? We're going to find out with today's special guest, Stacy Sherman. Today's episode is brought to you by the bestseller ChatGPT Profits. This book is the missing instruction manual to get you up and running with ChatGPT in a matter of minutes. As a special gift, you can get it absolutely free at artificialintelligencepod.com/gift or at the link right below this episode. Make sure to grab your copy before it goes back up to full price. Are you tired of dealing with your boss? Do you feel underpaid and underappreciated? If you want to make it online, fire your boss, and start living your retirement dreams now, then you come to the right place. Welcome to the Artificial Intelligence Podcast, where you will learn how to use artificial intelligence to open new revenue streams and make money while you sleep. Presented live from a tropical island in the South Pacific by best-selling author Jonathan Green. Now, here's your host. Now, your expertise is CX, and a lot of people don't even know what that stands for. So let's start at the very beginning with what those letters stand for and why they matter.
Yes. So CX means customer experience, and I'm all about helping people in doing CX right, which for many reasons, because in general, should never have bad experiences as a customer or as an employee or staff who fuels the customer experience. And I want people to also think about customer in terms of there's a patient experience, there's a student experience, there's a listener experience. So think about it in terms of who interacts with you and your brand. And that is the context of the customer. So there's a lot behind it, but I do know for sure that people don't just buy on price alone. They buy based on experiences. And so if you're doing CX right, you will actually be able to impact lives and your business.
Let's dig a little deeper into that. A lot of people these days, my age and younger, people, millennials say, oh, I don't want to buy things, I want to have experiences. Instead of buying a new car, I'd rather travel. And that's one interpretation of experience. But also, a lot of people, when they're starting to build their first business, they're so busy thinking about what to create that we don't often think about what's it like for a customer to navigate? What's it like for a customer to visit my website? What's it like for a customer to call my company or walk into my store? And there's a huge difference, for example, between walking into a Walmart and walking into a product. And there's scientists who spend a huge amount of study showing which way people turn. 90% of people turn right when they walk in a store. The stores organized from right to left. That's why they're always done, I think, clockwise, or maybe it's counterclockwise to have it backwards. But there's all sorts of psychology that goes into it. When you're starting your own store, you don't think about that stuff. You go, oh, I want to put this here and that there, and this looks cute over here. And we don't even realize it that we're hurting our own business. When that comes to an online type business, what are the types of mistakes that like the really obvious mistakes that are very common that people should look at first? What's the most common mistakes that you see, or just areas where we notice it as a customer, but we don't notice it when we're the vendor?
Yeah. Whether you're in a store, offline or online, the principles are the same, that there has to be this intentional design of the customer experience, their journey of how they learn, buy, get, use, pay, and get help is the customer service piece. And when you are creating an experience for someone, you have to literally map out how are they going to learn about your brand. So if it's online, an example, I worked at Verizon for many years. We would come together cross teams to design the journey. So when they come to your website, how are they going to learn? What are they going to learn? How easy are you making it for them to learn about what you're offering? Buying, how easy or difficult is it to actually buy what you want people to put in their cart? An example, a lot of times people will put words, a call to action in a button, and that button can be intimidating or it can be welcoming. Words matter, design matters, placement matters, the content around the product matters, the ratings and reviews matter. So the point of story is that I tell people to learn or work with people like me in designing the customer journey so that you are actually making it easy for them to accomplish their goal. And when you design for that experience, that shopping experience or that return visitor experience, you have to not only design it from the inside, but you have to also validate it with real customers that what you design is actually meeting their needs and close that gap.
Let's start with some specific examples, make sure people understand. I'll share some experiences I've had. The very first client I ever worked with was a massage therapist who had one of those cars that said, "Get a massage. Here's my business." Big phone number on the side. It had one of those wraps on the car. And she would get tons of calls. The car was really working for her. Generated a lot of business because she was a drive to your house one. And she said to me, "My website never gets any phone calls." When I looked at her website, I said, "That's because your phone number's not on the website." Really simple mistake that her website had made. And she couldn't see it. When sometimes people say, "Oh, there's something misspelled on your website," I can't tell even if they send me the sentence because I've seen it so many times. So sometimes we can't look at it ourselves. And I love your example of how hard is it to make a purchase. When people make it hard for me to buy from them, I go through a couple of phases. I want to buy it. How do I buy it? Why won't you buy it? I hate you. Like I go up to the rage cycle very quickly. Why are you making it hard for me? I get real. One of my pet peeves is when waiters disappear when I'm asking for the check. I always think that should be your favorite part. As the waiter, that should be your favorite part of the whole night is when I'm going to pay you, you get the money, but that's when they always disappear on me. And I don't know why. This is like a very common problem for me. So that's why it's on my mind. And it's the same idea as that a lot of people, when they can't tell me what they do, when I say, "What's your product?" or "What do you do?" If they can't explain it, that's part of the customer experience because I don't know if I want to buy from you or not. Like a lot of people have been taught, and I know there's a psychology that says, "Oh, you want to make them want it before you tell them what it is or tell them the price." And they misinterpret that as, don't tell them what your service is at all, really make them work for it. And that always turns me off as well. If you're a video expert, you don't have to bury that part of it. You can let me know I'm a video consultant or I'm a video editor and then build up to your pricing. Fine. But you can't say, "I just do online stuff, but let me find out what your needs are before I tell you what I do." That's too much gating. That's a bad customer experience for me. So when you talk about what's an intimidating versus a friendly button, can you give me an example of a really intimidating phrasing on a button?
Sometimes, depending on how far people are in the funnel, it could be as simple as learn more versus commit now. Even
Okay.
buy now. Sometimes it's in the wrong place where I haven't even learned and you're asking me to buy. So instead, it causes friction. Here's another example of friction. Again, wording is if I'm on the airlines, I bought my ticket and all I want to do is just check seats or view the seats. And I've seen some airlines say to do that, change seats is the button. But I'm not saying I wanna change them, I'm saying I wanna view them, so I get anxiety pressing the button because I don't wanna commit to changing my seat, I just wanna look at my reservation, so people have to realize that when they use words, they need to test, they need to get feedback, and make sure there's no friction.
This is really good because this happened to me today. I was looking to order something online and they were really wonky about the shipping. Sometimes the button makes it feel like I'm placing the order and I don't know what the shipping's going to be yet. And that's everyone knows, at least if you've been in business long enough, one of the main reasons people stop an order is shipping costs. It's like one of the biggest cart killers. And I was hitting the buttons and I was like, it says place your order. I'm like, what's the shipping cost going to be? And when that was a bad customer experience for me and I didn't order, I left because I don't like to play the game. So this is very good. You're very dialed in because I think we don't even realize how often one of these mistakes causes us to jump ship as a customer, let alone as a vendor. Because it's very easy as a vendor to make these mistakes and not realize it and blame the wrong thing. because if you have a new business, you can say, "Oh, I have a traffic problem. I'm getting the wrong people in my store." But maybe the problem is you just have a button mistake or pricing mistake or a coloring mistake. And it's important to get this outside perspective because, yeah, sometimes we don't see things. One of the things I always try to do is after someone comes a customer, I say, "How did you find me? Did you find me through LinkedIn? Did you find me through YouTube? Did you find me through a joint venture partner or something?" Because it helps you to understand what part of the business is working and what's not. But it also helps to ask people, are there things that we can improve about the membership area or the experience or the purchasing experience? Because sometimes people like the button doesn't work. That's a killer. If you have the wrong link in a button, same thing, like it's a technical part. But I see that's really important. So when you're with a lot of the changes with AI and advent of AI, and with your being an absolute expert in the space and even teaching a major LinkedIn course, which I recommend for people on LinkedIn learning, absolutely. I'm going to link to it below the video for sure. How can people use AI to start to help them improve with customer experience? One of the things that I recommend is just to say, especially now that AI can look, you can just give the link to your website and say, what's wrong? Now, the danger with that is that sometimes ChatGPT is very mean. If you give it permission to give you feedback, sometimes it's very harsh. It doesn't couch it, but it will give you a pretty deep analysis. But as a specialist, what are some other ways you would recommend for people to use AI tools to help them just get that external perspective?
Yeah. So one of the game changers is with and without AI is what I would call voice of the customer. When you are trying to get feedback, it's multi-channel. So you have social media, you have ratings and reviews, you have surveys, you have your log forms that are your contact form. So you can use the AI to give it all the feedback and then have it quickly identify your customer pain points instead of reading every one by one. And it's not a one and done thing because feedback is always changing and customer needs are always changing. So that is one way that could save you time and use the AI to help you synthesize the feedback to make your business decisions.
This is very good. In the past, the process that I use was, and you would hire someone for this because it takes so much time, is you would have everyone fill out a survey, and sometimes you'd have thousands of responses, and you'd have to manually process it, organize them into categories, figure out and say, oh, this is this type. What they're really saying is they don't like the colors. What this person's really saying is they don't like the pricing. And you have to organize them all into buckets to start to see. And the data analysis would take days or even weeks for even a smaller project. So one of the cool things is that an AI could do all the analysis in seconds and figure out the buckets, which is very cool because one of the things we have a tendency to do is the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Whoever says the biggest like reply, right? Whoever says the meanest thing, that's the one we remember when we're getting feedback. It's like, that's the one. And I see this happen with a lot of companies where they'll respond to the loudest voice on Twitter rather than their actual customers. And that's often when suddenly then it leads to a chain reaction because now you're listening to someone that was never going to buy from you or was never going to shop from you, or maybe it's not even a person. I don't know a lot of people that even use Twitter. And it's really important to be objective when you're looking at this data to say one person was upset, but 9 people liked it. So for example, my book, 90% super 5-star reviews. They love the book. 10% of people hate my book. They just hate it. But if you look at every book, Harry Potter has 10,000 1-star reviews. There are 10,000 people that hate that book so much that they said, I need to write a review. I need to write the 10,000th negative review of this book. There's like 500,000 positive reviews, 10,000 negative. Doesn't matter the book. There's always someone who hates it. The real danger is when everyone thinks your product is a 3-star, when everyone thinks you're middle of the road. So then you don't have any enemies, but you also don't have any super fans. And we sometimes want to drive towards that because it's like conflict avoidance. So how can people look at the right data? What's the right way to approach the data and the right information that matters and the right people to listen to?
This could be an hour in itself. So, first thing we could say is most companies are using Net Promoter Score, NPS, It is not the only score, but let's start there for a second. What happens is when people ask that question, how likely are you going to recommend our product or service? Okay. What happens is companies, even entrepreneurs, they'll look at the nines and tens, the promoters, and they'll look at the sixes and below and see the detractors and unhappy people. And they ignore the passives, those seven and eights. And that's a big mistake because they pick a side. So, for starters, I would tell you to take your promoters, activate them, use them. They just said they're going to refer you. Your seven and eights, your passives, make sure you understand what's in their way from being a brand advocate. And then your detractors understand their pain points and literally fix what's the pain points and go back to them. Now, NPS is only one score. One of my other favorites is effort. How easy or difficult is it to do business with us? How easy or difficult is it to get help when you need it? Customer service. And that is just another way where you can really drill down and understand what are the root causes and then fix things at scale.
So let's break these down for people that aren't familiar. We've all probably seen the quiz on every product I have asks that question on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend our product? And you answer it, and then they start asking you more questions half the time. And it seems like when this question was invented, everyone feels like it's the magic question that will tell you what's right and wrong about your business, that the scores, people really believe in it, almost like it's magical. I know there's a lot of weight to it, but I also think that once a person has seen that question from a certain number of vendors, the way they answer it changes. Like the way I respond to the question as a consumer changes the fifth, sixth, 10th, 50th time I see it. So I wonder if the way people respond changes over time because I definitely am very passive. Like I very rarely leave online reviews as much as I'm someone who wants my customers to do it. It takes a lot to make me angry enough to leave a negative review and engaged enough to leave a positive review with one of those things. What's funny is a vendor I worked with recently, right after a bad customer experience for me, where customer support kept copying and pasting the response, but not paying attention to what I was saying because I'm a sophisticated customer. If there's a problem and I know what it is and I explain exactly what it is, and then they just keep copying and pasting from their rule book and blaming the wrong thing, I go, yeah, but I already know it's not that. Here's how I know it's not that. That was my last email. I stopped responding to customer support. I'm probably going to change vendors actually. I'm working on that process. I'm probably going to change companies. And that's when they sent me the thing. I was like, I've been a happy customer for 2 years. I recommended probably 50 people to join the company. And now I'm going to leave because of this bad experience, because it's a technical problem that's added a lot of hours to my workflow. Like it's made my life harder. And I go, that's the best way to get rid of me. And they were like, I guess because you stopped responding to support, they think they've solved the problem. Like, no, I stopped responding because I said the same thing 3 times. You didn't respond to me. And I've already told someone else who's using the product because of me, I'm out of here. So sometimes companies put this in at the wrong point. And there is exactly that point where I'm not mad enough that I'm going to tell you what's going on because I already don't think it's going to fix it because I already said something to the support rep. You always get these surveys after you deal with customer support all of the time. And so often the customer support can really make or break a company. Right now, a big problem that I have is a lot of companies believe they can replace their customer support team with AI. And they go, we want to put a chatbot in customer support. We believe we can save a bunch of money by getting rid of those salaries. I'm like, absolutely. You will save money in the long term and you will kill your business as well. Because I've never met anyone who has had a positive experience as a customer with a customer support chatbot. I even asked the person whose idea it is, I go, how many times have you had a good experience as a customer support when you've reached and talked to someone else's chatbot? Never. How is yours going to be different? Because then I say, this is the question, this is how I know. I always say, will you give your chatbot the ability to issue a refund on its own? No, of course not. Then that means it doesn't have the power to solve the problem, does it? So I already know when I talk to a chatbot that it can't actually solve my problem. It can't send me a part. because you would never give it the power to affect finances. That means you don't trust it. So why would I trust it as a consumer? And I think this falls into that area of thinking about the customer experience. Sometimes saving money, pennies now, will cost you dollars in the long run, as we've seen, because some companies have had a chatbot that's really damaged the company's reputation, ends up in a news story. Sometimes people think I'm too small to think about this stuff. My business is too small. I can't afford a customer support consultant. I don't have a large enough customer base to ask these questions. And this is the chicken and the egg thing, right? How can I figure out my customer avatars when I have no customers? What are some baseline things someone can do to design like a baseline customer experience that's at least neutral while they're figuring out who their customer is, while they're building out this process?
Yeah, I would say you can do some pre-qualification up front, even in your contact form, to understand who is the person reaching out to you. Why are they reaching out? What's their challenge? So pre-qualify in the form. And if they're saying, I don't know where to find your office to mail you something or your email or something that's on the site, a chatbot can be great to give that information that's readily available and save someone time from the scavenger hunt. If in fact you have a chatbot and it needs to get to a human being, then you use that pre-qualification and then you bring them to the human being or the call back. But the key is to make sure that the information that the customer input, just like a phone IVR, the chat has to be able to take that information and pass it along to the human so that the human's not asking the same question.
That It's like you're reading my mind, because that drives me absolutely crazy when you fill in the whole form and the person asks the same questions. They always say, "What's your?" Especially a lot of customer support things, you have to give a code. I give the code to prove I'm a real customer, and then I get to the person, and it feels like everything I filled in was just a waste of time. Same thing when I call my bank, and I get that with the bank that they have to re-verify you. I understand why they're doing it, and that's fine, but they should at least know who I am and what the problem is. Having to repeat the problem always makes me crazy when you're
Yeah.
getting passed around customer support.
Yeah.
So, why do you think there are so many dropped balls or so many broken parts in the customer
Oh,
experience?
yeah.
What causes this to happen?
So the number one answer is communication. What happens is whether you're a small business and you have some interns working for you, contractors, virtual assistants, or you're in a big company with employees, the key is that communication breaks down. People work in silos. And so what happens is the customer in the end feels it. The other thing that happens is different departments have different goals. So when I go and buy something online and I need to return it, I'll often go to the store and they say, sorry, you have to send it back online. I can't take it. You bought it online. And I said, aren't you the same company? But the truth is, they have different goals, e-commerce and the retail. And so that gets in the way too. So the answer is make sure that you're breaking the company's silos, that you're mapping the customer journey together. You understand where you begin, where you fall off, and how that cohesive measurements happen. Because otherwise, the communication breaks down from internal to the customer.
So, this happened to me and my wife on Saturday. This is very good. We're out of town for my kids traveling for a Taekwondo tournament. And at the mall where they were doing the tournament, there's a huge appliance store. We need to buy a new refrigerator. Refrigerator in the house died last week. So we saw one in there for a great price. We know that there's a transportation cost because we're 4 hours away. It doesn't matter. We live on a small island, so no matter what, you have to pay transportation costs because it has to come by boat. So we're checking out the price, and it's expensive. It's a north of $1,000 purchase, which means I don't keep that much cash in my pocket on a Saturday. Like I don't often have $1,000 or $1,500 just in cash on me. So for a purchase this large, sometimes it takes us a day or two to set up logistics and say, okay, this is the right price. We have to talk to the landlord to approve the refrigerator. So we say, great, can we just call you on Monday, place the order, we'll pay online? Because this is a large brand. They have an e-commerce presence everywhere. And they go, yeah, but if you order online, they'll ship it from a different city and it will take a lot longer. And I said, what? Why would you do that? Like, why would you not ship it from you who's 4 hours away? You ship it from someone else who's 24 hours away. And there's no logic to it. Now, this is very common here. I live in a different country. You deal with this kind of stuff all the time. But it's exactly that issue where there's not an integration between customer support and through the different vendors and how to return things or how to get at your questions answered. What I found is that even for an online business, 99% of the time, customers have just one question before purchasing. It's not usually they need to call and ask 10 questions. They usually have one question that's their particular thing. Will this work for my unique situation? So having a way for customers to reach out to you and ask that question is really critical. It's so surprising when you find out that there's one question, and it's usually something really small that makes a huge difference. I made a very large purchase from a coach who's helped me through a project, and I only had one question because they said, oh, we do coaching calls, all this stuff. And I just was like, how long are the coaching calls? Because you don't say it anywhere in the marketing, which is really important to me because 15-minute call, 30-minute call, hour call, huge difference, right? So once I got that one question answered, which seems small, and then once you know that, then you can fix your marketing materials and answer that, then I made the purchase. So often smaller businesses will look at the wrong problem. I often work with people who their first thing, oh, my problem is I don't have enough traffic. And they say, if your product was $1 million, would you still have a traffic problem? No, as long as I'm getting that one customer. So maybe there's something else. And could be a pricing problem. There's a lot of products that don't sell until they raise the price where people go, it makes sense. If I said I have a Ferrari for $15, you're going to think it's a toy. Oh, he's got a toy car, not a real car. So if something's priced too low, too good to be true, that can also kill your
Yeah.
business. So there's all these other elements there
Yeah.
where people can look at the wrong problem and not realize it because there are so many moving parts to a business. This is why the first thing I tell people, I say, building your online business, I say, before you make your own offer, be an affiliate. This is how I always start. I sell someone else's product that I know their funnel works. So that way I know, okay, the traffic is buying stuff. Then when I put in my own product, I know it's not a traffic problem. I know it's the product problem. Because otherwise, if you don't know if it's the traffic or the offer, it's so hard to solve that problem. And in the same way, a lot of people, when they're first starting out, try a lot of different offers and nobody's buying. Who's seeing the offer? Is it the right people? Is it people who can afford your offer? So there's a lot of moving parts to this. For people who are trying to figure this out, what's like the best place for them to get a foundation of understanding how much customer experience they need, to think about as someone who's beginning? Because a lot of people say to me, like, how important is your website? And I was, it's not important. When you're first starting out, you can just get customers. Someone DMs you on LinkedIn or DMs you on Instagram and buys directly from you, never visits your website. My website's the least important part of my entire business. It gets the least amount of traffic. It generates the least revenue. It's simply there for people to go in between visiting one source or another to look at some content in between, but it's the least important part of my business. People often think it's so critical, especially if you're selling coaching or a service. I've never been to my handyman's website, right? He's done a lot of work on the house, like huge amounts of work, new roof, new floors, so much construction over the past year. I don't think he has a website. It's not always the most important thing, but we think it is because we sometimes think of customer experience just as the visual. So if someone's at the beginning of their journey or transitioning out of corporate and going, I'm going to start my own business, I'm going to hang up my own shingle, how much customer experience do they need, or how much customer experience do they think about just as they're starting?
Yeah. People buy from people they trust. So first evaluate, how do you show up in the world? And what are you saying out in the world? And are you giving knowledge? Are you doing peer-to-peer education? Because when you are, that's when people see and want to know you and learn more about what you do and learn from you. And that's what's worked for me. Working in corporate for 25 years, I started a blog. I had no idea if anyone would read it, but it was free content. And that's how I started, and that's how I got known. was just a blog, putting out stories and best practices. And that led to podcasting, that led to speaking on stages, et cetera, et cetera. I highly recommend that, yeah, go in the world and give content, express and educate. And that's what's going to lure people to you and what you offer. It's not rocket science.
And yet, so many people don't want to do it. A lot of people say, oh, if you want to know my secrets, you have to pay for it. So I appreciate you giving that advice. That's exactly what we're doing right here, is giving away a lot of free information to help people get started. People that want to learn more about what you're doing, Stacy, and want to learn more about customer experience, are going, oh my gosh, I am doing this wrong. Where can they find you online, find your blog, and find some of your free content so they can start figuring out what's going on?
Yes, there's a lot of content. So doingcxright.com. And there's my blog, my podcast, and a bunch of free content. And then obviously working with me, office hours, and helping people and literally analyzing their customer experience, measuring the experience, whether they're brand new or want to optimize. I do believe, as you said earlier, that we absolutely can double our income from existing clients and maximize referrals for sustainable growth. And people are not tapping into that and they're not doing CX right. Glad to help. And LinkedIn, I am active every single day. I'm on all social channels, but that's my favorite. And certainly my LinkedIn course talks a lot about how do you drive customer loyalty, especially from your frontline staff.
Great. I'll put links to all that below the video and in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here for another amazing episode of the Artificial Intelligence Podcast. Thanks for listening to today's episode. Starting with AI can be scary. ChatGPT Profits is not only a bestseller, but also the missing instruction manual to make mastering ChatGPT a breeze. Bypass the hard stuff and get straight to success with ChatGPT Profits. As always, I would love for you to support the show by paying full price on Amazon. We can get it absolutely free for a limited time at artificialintelligencepod.com/gift. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Artificial Intelligence Podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss another episode. We'll be back next Monday with more tips and tactics on how to leverage AI to escape that rat race. Head over to artificialintelligencepod.com now to see past episodes, leave a review, and check out all of our socials.